if you've watched Memphis Grizzlies basketball over the years, you've seen that they've churned out some irritable players for opponents. Someone like Tony Allen, Dylan Brooks. I'm going to tell you why. The latest addition to that group might be on the Memphis Grizzlies right now. And we might have just seen his coming out party in yesterday's 120-118 win against the Phoenix Suns. We're going to talk about Cam Spencer, and we're going to recap the game and much more in today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I am your host today, Damichael Cole, beat writer for the Commercial Appeal right here in Memphis, Tennessee. Thanking you guys for tuning in with me on this Tuesday edition of Locked On Grizzlies. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Grizzlies one of your first listens each and every single day. And remember that your favorite podcast now has a newsletter introducing the Locked On Grizzlies daily newsletter, the one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right into your inbox. Sign up for free now at lockedondaily.com. That's lockedondaily.com, and start your day with the all new free Locked On Grizzlies newsletter. Man, we got a lot to talk about on today's show. The Grizzlies picked up another big win. Another close game, too. I mean, they've been in a lot of those lately. But this one, a 120-118 win against the Phoenix Suns. The fourth and final time they met the Suns in the regular season. And the fourth win against the Suns. The Grizzlies finished a regular season sweep over the Phoenix Suns, 4-0 against Phoenix this season. And all the games were single-digit wins. But this one, again, I said that it would be different. There was no Jaren Jackson Jr., from an attention standpoint, and the Grizzlies needed other guys to really step up, but there was no doubt it all started with Ja Morant. We talked about it on yesterday, and that turned out to be the case. Ja Morant, one of his most efficient games all around this season today, but it's very encouraging, especially considering the stretch that he had, previously, where we talked about the struggles and things that he had went through immediately coming after the All-Star break, dating back to January, all of that. But anyways, Ja Morant in this game, 29 points, 12 assists, 9 of 13 shooting from the field, 10 of 10 from the free throw line. Basically, in this game, he was 1 of 5 on three-pointers. So you take away the three-pointers, he was 8 of 8. He didn't miss inside the arc, and he didn't miss from the free throw line. So Ja Morant only missed three-pointers in his game. Anything that was inside the arc was a make, including free throws. Again, 12 assists. Did a really good job of keeping, his teammates engaged. And his teammates did a really good job of what I like to say is rising to the occasion. Ja was terrific in this game. We're going to talk about his teammates a little bit more in a second here, but again, I think the rim pressure was a big point of emphasis for Ja in this game. And Desmond Bane struggled. Desmond Bane was 4 of 11. We talked about how good he's been as of late. 4 of 11 from the field. He had 10 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists. He had a bad turnover late in this one as well. He was minus 15 in his 34 minutes of action. So you needed Ja to be Ja. You needed Ja to be the best version of himself. And the Grizzlies got close to that. Ja himself after the game, he said this is not the best version. He said, yeah, he still has a ways to go to get to that level. But I'm telling you, it looked good in the time that he was out there on the floor. We talked a lot about the fact that he had to get to the basket. He had to attack this defense that is not known for having a lot of shot blockers, and that turned out to be the case. The Suns finished this game with 2 blocks. One came from Bobo, who played 16 and a half minutes, and the other came from Kevin Durant, who played 41 and a half minutes. So the point being that the Suns as a team had 2 blocks. That's not a team that is equipped to handle Ja Morant. You need elite rim protection to be able to handle Ja Morant. They do not have that, and Ja was terrific again. 9 of 13 from the field, 10 of 10 from the free throw line, 12 assists really jumped up. And the 12 assists really came from the fact that he had a lot of teammates that stepped up and really took advantage of some extra playing time in this game. The Grizzlies were without Luke Kennard. The Grizzlies were without uh Jaren Jackson Jr. They were without Zach Edey. They were without Brandon Clark. They were without Santi Aldama. I mean, it was a long list of Grizzlies players who were out in this game. Vince Williams Jr., second leg of a back-to-back, he was also out. So you got so many guys out. Somebody's got to step up. And it's not as easy as because you felt like the Grizzlies were only missing a couple wings, really, in theory. Like Luke Kennard and Vince Williams were the only two quote unquote wings that were out. But the fact that those guys usually can slide over a spot where, Kennard can usually play the three a little bit. Vince Williams, we've seen him play the four in stretches. The Grizzlies have to play small a lot. Like, and small, by small, I mean, small ball four. And typically we see the Grizzlies have a lot of size, at that position. And G.G. Jackson started at the four at this game, which is something we've seen him play a lot there. But the Grizzlies won this game. Don't get me wrong, because of what Ja Morant did, but they don't win this game without Jay Huff, Lamar Stevens, Scottie Pippen Jr., Marvin Bagley, and Cam Spencer. Those guys played their butts off for the Grizzlies. They all did something to contribute to this win. Terrific game for what I call the group of underdogs. The group of guys who typically are either at the bottom, the end of the rotation, or they just flat out haven't been in it. Because that was the case for pretty much every guy that I just said. Scottie being the one exception where he's been in the rotation most of the year, but lately he's been pushed all the way to the back of the rotation. Cam Spencer hasn't been in the rotation a lot. Jay Huff hasn't. Marvin Bagley's still getting his feet wet around here. Lamar Stevens is on the second 10-day contract. But all those guys made pivotal impacts in this game. Jay Huff got to start at center. The Suns really were kind of daring him to shoot a lot in this game. I mean, he had 11 shots and 8 from three-point line, and he took advantage. He made 4 3-pointers. You got 4 3-point makes from Cam Spencer. You got 4 3-point makes from Lamar Stevens. The Grizzlies as a team made 17 3-pointers. 17. Those three guys alone make 12 of them. Jay Huff, Lamar Stevens, Cam Spencer. In other words, 3 guys who are highly unlikely to be in the Grizzlies rotation in the next month or even definitely in the playoffs. But those guys stepped up and really brought it. Actually, Lamar Stevens after the game about his 3-point shooting because the Suns, they had their scouting report. They did their homework, and they said that we're going to give Lamar Stevens a little bit of room. We're going to dare him to shoot. Lamar Stevens told me after the game, I've seen teams, guard me like that in the past, but he kind of attributed his time in the G League. Remember before he signed his 10 days with the Grizzlies, he spent a lot of time in the G League to kind of refining his jump shot a little bit, putting a lot of work in, and he believed it showed in this game. I mean, you saw him knock down the 3-pointers, and he was efficient. You would think he was 4 of 6 overall from the 3-point line, 13 points as well. Just all around terrific shooting. Ja Morant trusted him to knock those shots down. Cam Spencer stepping up as well. We're going to talk about him a little bit more in the next segment. And, of course, Jay Huff knocking down the shots. But Scottie Pippen Jr. mostly did it with his defense. I mean, he had to spend a lot of time guarding Devin Booker because you were without, guys like Vince Williams and Jalen Wells, who we'll talk about later on in the show, went out the game for a period of time there, ended up playing only 23 minutes. So you needed Scottie to kind of be that defender. And in 27 minutes, he really brought that intensity. He had 2 steals. You also got, 3 steals off the bench from Cam Spencer. So you got 5 steals from those guys in particular. Cam Spencer, Scottie Pippen Jr., end of the day, the guys that had to step up did. You got a Ja Morant, great night from Ja Morant. You did not get the best night from Desmond Bane. And if you say, okay, you're going against the Phoenix Suns, well, Kevin Durant's going to end the night with 35 points. Devin Booker gets 26 points. How do you win this game? Those players that stepped up. You win this game with the the two-way ability of the Scottie Pippen Jr.'s and Lamar Stevens, who spent a lot of time guarding Kevin Durant down the stretch. You win that game with Cam Spencer stepping in, knocking down some big shots. Jay Huff knocking down some big shots. You win the game with Marvin Bagley rolling to the rim, catching a couple alley-oop dunks from John Morant, despite not having much chemistry with him at this point of the season. So basically just playing off a field and just basketball field over the course of his basketball life. This game, again, it was a close one, and I know some people think the Grizzlies are playing with fire with these close games, and you want the best players to be out there, the Santis and Luke Kennards and Jaren Jackson Jr.'s of the world. But look, those guys were unavailable, and the Grizzlies took care of business. It was good that they took care of business because the Lakers actually lost against the Nets. So now you move closer to the Lakers in the standings, and you're closer. You're right there with the Nuggets as well. So that battle is for the number 2 seed is still very much in play for the Grizzlies going forward. Speaking of in play, Cam Spencer might be in play for the Grizzlies going forward after what he did in this game. It was a coming out party for Cam Spencer. We're going to talk about that here next, coming up on Locked On Grizzlies. But before we get to that, today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by SKIMS. Look, when I found out SKIMS was making underwear for men, I was intrigued. And I've heard so much about their quality from friends and family. So I said, you know what? I'll give it a try. And let me tell you, SKIMS definitely lives up to the hype. Look, I've had problems with underwear in the past, whether it's fit, comfort, or you just got to find the right style for you. SKIMS changes all of that. Their men's line offers something new for everyone, from boxers briefs to classic briefs, all designed with the perfect balance of comfort and style. Make sure you go take advantage of this because I tried SKIMS, the boxers briefs, and I'm hooked. I'm hooked. These are perfect for my active lifestyle. I like to move around, and they never lose their shape, and they stay in place all day. So whether I'm working out or I'm just running some errands, they're the most comfortable and reliable underwear I've ever owned in my life. Plus, the lightweight material feels amazing, and it's almost like you're not really wearing anything. So that really helps out as well. So make sure you go take advantage of this opportunity. Shop SKIMS Mens at SKIMS, SKIMS.com/LockedOnNBA and SKIMS stores. Let them know we sent you. So after you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows after that. So go take advantage of that opportunity right now over at SKIMS. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies, and we got to talk about Cam Spencer. It was the coming out party. It was the coming out party for Cam Spencer, and it was a big time party. It was a big time performance. 4 made 3-pointers, 16 points, second highest on the team, by the way. Ja had 29 and 12 assists. Cam Spencer had 16 points. Did this in 20 minutes. We talked about the steals, right? 3 steals. He had the technical foul. What a night. What a night from Cam Spencer. And if you've been following the Cam Spencer road up to this point, you know it's been filled with injuries, right? Beginning of the season, I believe it was before the preseason started. Cam Spencer didn't practice in Nashville. Now that I think back to it, I remember we get there for media day. Cam Spencer's coming to the stage, coming up to the to his media press conference on the podium in a boot, and Taylor Jenkins says that he has an ankle sprain. Turns out it was a bad ankle sprain. It's grade 3. He misses a bunch of time. Finally gets ready to play, right? Boom. Then he has a wrist injury, a thumb injury, excuse me. Gets surgery on the thumb, misses a lot more time, and just couldn't really get into much of a flow with the Grizzlies. He goes down to play some, and now the Grizzlies are getting healthy. He goes down to play in G League, has a 51-point performance that caught a lot of people's eyes. Played a few more games in the G League, and the opportunity to play with the Grizzlies hasn't really been there much for him. Well, as we mentioned, Luke Kennard being out, Vince Williams being out, some of the other guys on the wing, you kind of had to downsize. You need them to play more 3 and more of the 4. Some minutes opened up for Cam Spencer, and he took advantage of it in a lot of ways. And the number one way was his 3-point shooting. This is something he's been known for. This is one of the main reasons. Well, I'll say it is the main reason the Grizzlies drafted him. This is a guy who was one of the best 3-point shooters in college basketball over his time playing at the collegiate level. And he was a big reason why the UConn Huskies won a national championship last season. The 3-point shooting was really good. You could tell that Ja was looking for him. Talked about Ja having 12 assists. Some of that was just looking for Cam Spencer, finding him, and Cam was knocking him down. We saw Grizzlies teammates were just hyped up. Anytime he got the ball, you look over at the Grizzlies bench. And anytime he shot a 3-pointer, they felt like it was going in. They've seen the work in the practices and whatnot. So Cam Spencer's 3-point shooting really stood out to me. And the other thing was his mentality, right? Morant called him psycho. In a good way. I want to make sure everybody takes it the wrong way. But Morant said after the game, he's psycho, but I love it. They love his intensity. What makes Morant say something like that? What makes some of the other teammates call him fiery and say, oh, he's an intense dude? They knew in the first practice. The Summer League guys knew even before that. G.G. Jackson, he knew in Las Vegas. He knew in Salt Lake City. Jalen Wells, he been knew about this. They knew because things like it's the small things. He's so intense. Cam Spencer, that is, in practice. He's so intense in workouts. Like, players will tell you, and I've seen it with my own eyes as well. Like, there are times where he misses 2 3-pointers in a row at practice. No exaggeration. It doesn't have to be 5 in a row. Oh, please don't let Cam Spencer miss 5 3-pointers in a row. He misses 2 3-pointers in a row in practice, and he'll just scream out an F-bomb. And the players have to get used to it. I think Desmond Bain was the one who was talking about it after the game on yesterday and was like, he was looking over trying to see what was going on, and the other coaches and staff were just telling him, like, oh, that's just what he does. That's what Cam Spencer does. He misses a couple shots. He's yelling out expletives, and he's not happy. The guy wants to win badly. Like, when you talk about players who will really lay it out all on the line, that's Cam Spencer. We talked to him after the game, and it was so much about the team, and it was genuine. Like, he was talking about making winning basketball plays, right? And when we were talking to him about making winning basketball plays, one of his quotes that he said really caught my eye. And when he was talking about helping the Grizzlies play winning basketball, he said, "It's life or death to me." Those were Cam Spencer's words. He said, "It's life or death to me." And he wasn't joking. Like, if you've heard some of the Cam Spencer's quotes in the past, he said stuff like, he'd die on a basketball court, like, trying to win the game and things like that. The dude's intensity is different. He's wired different. Like, you see him go at Kevin Durant, and some people will say, why would a rookie do such a thing? He knew it was KD. Didn't really matter. He's just competitive. Like he said, it's part of his competitiveness. It's not, like, I think where you talk about the little differences where certain guys, like, I think Dillon Brooks had that same competitive edge, but with Dillon Brooks, it was a mind game too. He wanted to get into the head of a Kevin Durant or of a Devin Booker or Steph Curry and those guys. He wanted them to be thrown off their game mentally because that felt like a win to him. I don't think Cam Spencer looks at it the same way. I think Cam Spencer's just expressing himself because he wants to win, and whatever comes out in whatever shape or form. That's kind of what I get from him. But yeah, he challenged KD. I mean, he was fired up throughout the course of this game, and that guy can play. Cam Spencer can play. He can knock down some 3-point shots. He's comfortable taking the ball off the dribble, looking for teammates and making plays in those situations as well. It wasn't just, him spotting up in the corner, knocking down shots. He had 3 assists as well in those 20 minutes that he played. So 16 points to go with 3 assists and 3 steals. So it's all around impact for him. And speaking of impact for him, I know a lot of people are going to be wondering at this point, like, what can happen with Cam Spencer going forward? We'll talk about the next season aspect of this because we mentioned Luke Kennard earlier. Luke Kennard's on the last year of his contract, and if you lose Luke Kennard, you're going to lose some shooting. And then there happens to be a guy in Cam Spencer who's on a two-way contract who is a really good shooter. So that could be a nice transition there, but that's something we'll kind of dive into at a later date. But right now, as I mentioned, he's still on a two-way contract, which is an important distinction. Look, it's just one game that we're talking about. I don't want to get too carried away here. We're not going to talk about playoffs and things like that. Just want to point out the facts. And the facts are right now, if you've jumped on the Cam Spencer train, you got to come with the realization that right now, since he's on a two-way contract, he's not eligible for the postseason. Like, this is going to be a regular season ride unless the Grizzlies, again, we just talked about Lamar Stevens being on his second 10-day contract. If after two 10-day contracts, the Grizzlies got to make a decision. Either they're going to keep Lamar Stevens throughout the rest of the season, or they're going to part ways with him. Lamar Stevens played good in this game. He knocked down some threes. He was physical on the defensive end. I don't really think Lamar Stevens is going anywhere. If he's not going anywhere, there's not a spot for Cam Spencer to be on the playoff rotation. But look, that's a problem for another day. Just wanted to point out the fact that from a long-term standpoint, he can play right now. He can play in the regular season. I think the Grizzlies will see kind of, I know some people want to see him stay in the rotation maybe, like since because he earned his minutes. We'll see how that works out because if you keep playing him, as you have to be conscious of the fact that that has to turn off at some point because he's not eligible for the postseason roster. So that's why we're bringing that up because that is kind of a tough decision that you have to make. Like, let's say the Grizzlies do say, hey, we're going to play him all the way through. Cam Spencer has been really good for us. And then you get to the playoffs and you don't have him. And now you got to adjust in the playoffs to playing without him. So that's kind of a thing that, again, that's above my pay grade. That's for Taylor Jenkins and Zach Kleiman and all those guys to really figure out over there. But speaking of figuring out things, we're going to figure out what's going on with the Grizzlies on the injury front coming up here next on Locked On Grizzlies. But before we get to that, today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by WayFair. Look, your home should reflect your style. And with WayFair, it's really easy to make that happen. Whether you're looking for a simple refresh or you're tackling a big home project, WayFair has everything you need in one place. WayFair's huge selection makes it easy to find the perfect piece, no matter your space or the budget. From cozy furniture to stylish decor to kitchen essentials, outdoor must-haves, Wayfair has it all, and at the prices that fit your budget. So make sure you go take advantage of these opportunities because it's easy shopping and delivery. The site made it simple to compare styles, and your order will arrive fast, sometimes with even free delivery. Head over to wayfair.com and find something that's just your style today. That's Wayfair, WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Make sure you go take advantage of that opportunity right now over at wayfair.com. Grizzlies injury update. We got to talk about this. We got to talk about the injury updates simply because of the fact that, I mean, there were a lot of guys out. There's a reason we talked about Lamar Stevens, Cam Spencer, and the work that these guys did in this game. It's because the Grizzlies are missing a bunch of their regular rotation guys. And let's start with the guy who kind of got injured in the game. He did return. Jalen Wells did return to the game. That was a good sign, but we saw it, the screen. He just didn't really see it coming. I don't think his teammates really saw it coming either, but Nick Richards was behind the half court. The Grizzlies weren't really happy with it, but Jalen Wells got kind of decked pretty hard, fell to the ground, looked like he was in a lot of pain. You've been watching the Grizzlies all season. Jalen Wells hasn't fallen and not gotten up a lot. I mean, he's a warrior out there, and he's taking his share of beatings while guarding some of these top-tier players. So Jalen Wells goes down, stays down for a little bit. This happens in the third quarter, goes to the locker room, comes back out, returns in the fourth quarter, plays down the stretch for the Grizzlies. Talked to him after the game. Right now, he said he can't really hear out of his left ear. Can't hear out of his left ear right now, but at the same time, he said, other than that, I feel good. So Jalen Wells is in positive spheres despite kind of get rung a little bit there in the third quarter against the Suns. What about the guys that were out? Vince Williams, I think that's the easy one we can start with. Vince Williams just isn't playing back to backs right now. The next example, the next case we'll see will be Friday or Saturday. Will he be able to play on that back to back? We'll see. But as I said in our last couple episodes, as I talked about Vince Williams and his ramp up period, he in his own words said about a week ago that he's about 80% of where he wants to be. So look, he's healthy, but it's still a ramp up for him, trying to kind of make sure that he's at his best health wise going into the playoffs. The way he's looking at it is, I'm going to be at my best. I'm going to be peaking health wise, while other guys' bodies are taking a beating and they're kind of just going to be grinding it out through the playoffs. That's the Vince Williams mindset and his mentality as he's attacking this thing. So we'll see how that works out for him. Luke Kennard, Taylor Jenkins said is a short-term injury with the low back soreness. Wanted to point that out as well. And then with Santi Aldama, again, calf strains, there's nothing to play about. However, the Grizzlies do believe that is a short-term injury as well. Jaren Jackson Jr. will have more accountable on his progress and the process in his return to play here in the next couple of days. But wanted to point out this injury situation pretty much in particular because I think now with the way that the schedule lines up, yes, this is a week where the Grizzlies have 4 games. So you don't really have a lot of time also to speak. But Wednesday's game is against the Utah Jazz. And if you've seen how many guys have been missing time for the Utah Jazz as of late, the Grizzlies, as long as they have the Morant, Desmond Bane, and a couple other guys out there, they should beat the Jazz in Memphis on Wednesday. So you're talking about a situation where you go into Friday against the Cleveland Cavaliers. You should have a few guys back. You should have some reinforcements going into that game, which is the first leg of a back-to-back heading into Saturday's game, which is the Tony Allen jersey retirement game where you take on the Miami Heat. So all things are, I guess you could say, trending in a positive direction on the injury front. There aren't really injuries on the Grizzlies side where something's in bad shape or whatever the case may be. At least at this point, everything is trending up for the Grizzlies on that end, especially with Luke Kennard and Santi Aldama. Want to point out that Taylor Jenkins said that those injuries are considered to be short-term at this point. And Jalen Wells said he can't really hear out of his left ear right now, but he's fine. He was all smiles after the game. He didn't appear to be really too irritated or anything like that. So good spirits, good vibes all the way around as the Grizzlies picked up their 3rd win in a row after a 4-game losing streak, which Desmond Bane was asked after the game, like how do you feel after this, after the stretch that you've been going through? You just lost 4 in a row and now you won 3 in a row. He said, same way. Feels the same way that he did during the 4-game losing streak. And if you know Desmond Bane, if you've been watching our coverage or any coverage of Desmond Bane, you know that he's pretty even keel. He's the guy where you walk up to him after a game they lost by 20 or they win by 20. You probably won't be able to tell just by the tone and the way he's carrying himself after the game. So not really a wear your emotions on your sleeve type of guy. But the point is that the Grizzlies are still feeling good despite the rocky road that is the last week has been for the team. Remember that your favorite podcast now has a newsletter. Introducing the Locked On Grizzlies Daily Newsletter, the one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right into your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Grizzlies newsletter. Thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies with me on today. Make sure you continue to tune in to Locked On Grizzlies. Me and Joe Mullinax will be back with you for the next episode of Locked On Grizzlies as we get ready for that game against the Jazz and talk about some other things going on with the Memphis Grizzlies as well. So make sure that you tune in for that. But until then, remember that Locked On Grizzlies is free and available wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Wherever you get your podcasts, Locked On Grizzlies is there. So make sure that you remember that because it is free and available at all of those places. Until next time, I'm Damichael Cole, and we'll see you on Locked On Grizzlies.